I, 30, one male, and my wife, 29 female, had a baby last December. It was a traumatic birth, and my wife developed postpartum depression. While she was originally going to go back to work after the birth, she's been struggling enough that we decided to wait until our daughter was a year old and reassess. She has been going to therapy weekly. With my wife home full-time, I've had to work increased hours. This is something we discussed prior to making this decision, and she knew this from the start. A few weeks ago, my boss approached me about a project that would require a lot of overtime in a short amount of time. It would both be great financially and for my career. I talked to my wife about it, and she agreed that I should say yes to my boss. For the 4 weeks I'd be working on this, my mother-in-law and her best friend, Jessie, would come help out with some of the duties that I typically do. Jessie is a stay-at-home mother with a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. She began coming over during the day and would watch the kids with my wife. 3 weeks into the project, it became clear that we'd need a few more weeks to get it together. I went home that night and talked to my wife about it. She said she was okay with it, but got very cold in the days after. It wasn't unusual behavior over the past few months, so I didn't think much about it and tried not to take it personally. During the last week of the project, I got home one night and saw that Jessie was still at the house. I didn't think much about it. I said hi to her and my wife, and then went to go check on our daughter. Before I could get to her room, I heard Jessie say something along the lines of, "He doesn't even stop to greet you, definitely a sign." I turned around and asked what it was, a sign of. Immediately, my wife started crying and Jessie started accusing me of having an affair. She told me that I must hate my wife because she has Pat and am not attracted to her because she gained weight from the pregnancy. Neither of these things are true. I'm trying my best to help my wife through her PA while supporting our family. And I think she looks great how she is right now. She just hasn't wanted to have sex, and I haven't pushed. Jessie then demanded to see my phone. I told her no. She told me that's a sign that I'm guilty. I told my wife that I would let her see my phone if she wanted to. She nodded, and something inside me broke. I guess it was the thought that she actually believed I was having an affair really got to me, and that she didn't trust me after everything we've been through. Well, she looked through the phone, and there was no evidence. Jessie started saying that I deleted the evidence. She started screaming and woke up our daughter, so I told her to get out of the house. Eventually, she left, and I went to calm our daughter since my wife was still on the couch crying. When my daughter was asleep again, I sat down by my wife and tried to talk to her about what had been happening. She told me that she's been worried ever since I started working all the overtime. I told her that we talked about how good of an opportunity it was, and she agreed to let me take on this project. She said it was very suspicious to increase the length of the project. I told her that sometimes that happens. She wanted more evidence, so I showed her messages and emails with timestamps from work and pay stubs showing the overtime. She said she believed me and was sorry for doubting me. It was just that Jessie had been telling her that these were all signs that I was cheating. I asked her why she believed Jessie more than me and why she didn't come to me with her concerns. She didn't have a real answer. It's been a couple of weeks and the project is over. I actually scaled back and am trying to work a little less than I was before on the project so I can spend more time with my wife and daughter. But I feel so burnt out trying to do everything and becoming resentful because, in the back of my mind, I know that my wife doesn't trust me. I ask myself, what happens the next time I have a project? Or I have to run errands one day? Or if I have a business trip, am I going to come back every time to accusations that I'm cheating? I've tried bringing it up a couple of times, but my wife tells me it's not the time and that she's tired or sad. I try to be mindful of her feelings, but I wonder if that means that I can never have any of my own. I'm not sure what to do here. Any advice for how I can move forward? Update number 1. Thank you to everyone for all of the advice and support on my previous post. I think a lot of you pointed out what should have been obvious: that I need to get a therapist and start looking after my own mental health. A couple of people asked for an update, so I'm giving one, but it's not happy. That night, I approached my wife and told her that I was going to find a therapist. I didn't connect it to her accusations or anything, just said that I was having a tough time and needed therapy. She shrugged and told me to do whatever. The next day, I got home from work and our room and my home office were ripped apart. Things were everywhere. Important papers are scattered. I don't see her, but our daughter's in her room crying. My wife had left her alone and her cell phone's off. I called my in-laws and a few friends, but no one's seen her. I'm starting to get worried, and I call my mom to see if she can babysit while I go out and look for her. Before my mom can get home, my wife gets back. Jessie's driving. Jessie doesn't come in. She hasn't been back in the house since I kicked her out because she was offended by my behavior, but my wife does. She's clearly upset and been crying. I ask what happened. I thought at first that the house might have been robbed. She starts screaming at me that I'm being unfaithful and that the therapy is a front so I can meet my mistress. I tried to calm her down and tell her that's not true, but she came at me and she hit me. My nose is broken. She kind of realized what she did and sat down on couch and went comatose, just staring at the wall. I went into my daughter's room and locked the door. I called my mom to tell her what happened. She was already on her way, and my mother-in-law to ask her to come over and take care of my wife. I packed a bag for my daughter, and when my mom got there, we left. My wife didn't even look up. We dropped my daughter off with my dad, and then went to urgent care for my nose. I got blood all over my mom's new Subaru. My daughter and I are staying with my parents for a while, and my wife staying with hers. I am looking into getting a restraining order against Jessie. My wife and I are separating. I love her, but I won't live with someone who hurts me and who could potentially hurt our daughter. I am not going forward with a divorce yet, with the hopes that my wife will get the treatment she needs and we can work things out. My in-laws told me that they're looking at inpatient treatment at a local hospital. But I also have everything well documented in case of an eventual custody battle. My heart's broken because I know this isn't my wife. This is a sickness in her mind. But I need to keep myself and our daughter safe and give her the space to recover. I'm hoping that this is the right decision. Thanks again, everyone. I've talked to my parents after reading your comments and came to the conclusion that for my daughter's protection, I need to file a police report. I am headed to the station now. Update number 2. Do I let the woman I fought with my wife's death let her speak at her funeral? My wife passed on early Monday morning. Convinced by her friend Jessie that I was having an affair that I did not have. She had a mental break, which resulted in my taking our infant daughter and staying with my parents for a while. She was with her parents, who planned on taking her to the hospital for inpatient treatment on Monday. On Sunday night, she came to my parents' house and demanded I give her our daughter. Because she had left her alone for several hours the last time she was responsible for her, and had gotten physical with me, so I refused. I offered to let her come in and spend time with her while my parents and I were present. But she didn't want to come in and wanted to take our daughter with her. She was upset, but left eventually. A few hours later, she drove her parents' car into a tree and died. The friend, Jessie, came to see my daughter and me yesterday. After some tears, she told me that she was planning to speak at my wife's funeral. She had already cleared it with my in-laws, but was letting me know as a courtesy. I told her she would not be speaking at the funeral, We fought, and she left after telling me that I was an asshole and not the only person who loved my wife. I talked to my in-laws, who are adamant that Jessie be allowed to speak. She and my wife have known each other since they were kids, and my in-laws are close to her. We're all very fragile right now, and I fear that pushing this further would hurt my relationship with my in-laws, which I don't want. Still, the thought of seeing Jessie up there at my wife's funeral makes me feel sick. I don't think I can stand to listen to her, knowing that she took joy in my wife's deteriorating mental health and picked up my wife, leaving my daughter home alone. That being said, I don't trust myself to make the best decisions right now. My mind's clouded by grief, guilt, and fear. My parents are split on what to do, and I don't have the energy to reach out to my friends. So I'm coming here again to ask for your advice. Story number 2. Details of wife's affair haunts me. My wife and I have been married for 7 years together, for 10. I am 37, she is 32, and our marriage has been amazing up until recently. We get into the occasional disagreements, like every couple, but for the most part, it has been loving, fulfilling, and happy for both of us. While not as frequently as before, we still share an active and healthy sex life as well. She is truly my goddess, beautiful, smart, funny, etc., and I take great pride in the lifestyle that I provide for us. While I work anywhere from 40 to 60 hours per week, she is a part-time professor at a community college as well as a yoga instructor. 4 months ago, I was rocked when I curiously peeked through her email. There was an exchange with a male name I didn't recognize. I opened the thread to find that this man was emailing my wife sex tapes of their affair while they shared sexually explicit banter. A rush of emotions came over me, but fortunately I had hours to compose from the rage and formulate a plan before she got home. I felt as though I was blindsided. I could not stop watching the 2 videos, and could not fathom that the life I had worked so hard to build with her could be taken from me. I packed and prepared to confront her, and then left for the night in order to sort things out on my own. I dropped the bomb on her, and immediately she began to tear up and sob in front of me, admitting to it and profusely apologizing. I got upset and told her I would find another place to stay. Her crying went into hysteria. She was begging and pleading for me to stay. She called non-stop during that time. I stayed at my brother's, leaving messages saying that she loved me, and it was the biggest mistake of her life. After 2 weeks, I missed her, so I went home to reconcile. I kept asking her how she could do this to me, and each time she replied with, "I don't know," or "it just happened." I found out that he was a 27-year-old professor at the college and had begun working in my wife's department months prior. I told her my trust would have to be earned back. She had already come up with a plan to earn my trust back, including cutting the guy and changing jobs. She will allow me to track her phone and car, give me access to her email accounts, submit to an Instead test, and go to therapy. I could feel the deep remorse and her desire to reconcile. Since, she has been grateful for the opportunity I have given her, held up her end 100%, and has generally been a very pleasant, loving person to be around. But if only the trust could fix the damage. Even with all this relationship progress, I cannot fight the constant pain and torment that comes from thinking of the details of her affair. The memory of the videos is burned into my brain, and feelings of pain, humiliation, and embarrassment overcome me. This has led to much stalled progress, as I have harbored much resentment for my wife because of it. Their sex was completely unprotected, and he was well endowed. She did things with this man that we as a married couple have never done, like wearing different lingerie and enthusiastically performing oral sex on him. It feels like a chore when she does it for me. What really hurts is that she had anal sex with him and swallowed his semen more than once. Those were two things that I asked her if she was willing to try in our relationship. She would always detest referring to them as gross or degrading. But words cannot describe how much she degraded herself in this video. It makes me sick to picture the disgusting things she did, like licking his anus or giving him oral, directly following anal. But worst of all, she seemed more enthusiastic about all of it than she ever had about our sex life in 10 years. I have asked her why she would do such things and how she could do things with him that she refused with me. Her answer is always, I don't know. I am constantly being ripped apart, seeking an answer to this question. Needless to say, my self-esteem is shot. I saw with my own eyes that this man turned her on more than I had, and she had a much stronger desire to please him. This has caused us to have intimacy problems ever since. Since her answer is, I don't know, it is always running through my mind that it was because my penis was too small, that I'm too weak, or that I was an inadequate lover. These thoughts and feelings are causing so much emotional turmoil and built-up resentment toward my wife. She is putting in such a strong effort, but my feelings don't seem to go away or lose intensity. I would like to know if anyone else has dealt with such a problem. Is it fair to myself or my wife to keep trying to work it out? Any help would be much appreciated, as I feel like I am at my wit's end. Update. I've been on the fence if I should give an update, but decided maybe it's good to write this down. I would like to thank all the people who reached out to me. I didn't expect to get so much support from strangers. I did get some nasty messages, but even those seemed to be helpful. So, over the last couple of months, we've been in therapy, but she wasn't very forthcoming as to why she did this. However, I eventually did find out why, but not through any therapy session. I think many of you already knew why, and I just couldn't accept it. We were invited to her friend's 30th birthday party, and I thought it would be a good opportunity for us to get out. The party went pretty late, and my wife was really drunk. This is rare for her, given her focus on yoga. I ended up calling an Uber, and we went home. She was really loud during the ride home, and it just annoyed me. When we got home, I thought, given how drunk she is, maybe she would be more open to telling me about the reason for the affair. Before I continue, I think I should give you a little more background about my wife and myself. Over the last 5 years or so, I've gained over 50 pounds because of my total focus on my career. Unfortunately, along the way, I have premature graying hair. I've been promoted a number of times and my salary has increased significantly. I was doing this for us so she could be a stay-at-home mom when we have kids. So, with my weight and graying hair, I look much older than my actual age. My wife, on the other hand, has become very fit over the last 5 years while becoming a yoga instructor. She still has her blonde hair. I would say she looks younger than her age. Usually, I didn't think much of this difference in looks, but I guess I should have. Thinking back, I remember a number of times when my wife was hit upon at the grocery store or when we were out with friends. So, back to my drunk wife, she did end up telling me more about the affair. She admitted that she found him attractive and fit. He would come by her office. They would go to lunch. He started taking her yoga class, which I didn't know, so they would hang out after that as well. He would flirt, which made her feel attractive, and progressively he asked more personal questions, which then moved on to sex talk. She thought he was aggressive, but she also liked the attention, and it made her feel wanted. Still, she didn't think it would proceed further than that. But one night at a faculty dinner, they both drank a little too much wine. My wife had forgotten something at her office, and he walked with her there since it was dark outside on campus. After they got to her office, he kissed her and they ended up having sex on her desk. After that, it escalated from there. She never expected to do all those things, but he would be slightly more aggressive and push her during each of their encounters. She eventually just went with it and realized she enjoyed him being so dominant. She was crying as she was telling me all this and kept saying sorry. She said that the guilt had been eating at her, and she said I didn't deserve to be treated like this given how good I've been to her. She just wished it never happened and didn't know why she lost control like that. I said to her that basically she screwed this guy and let him do whatever to her because she found him attractive, wanted to make him happy, and didn't want to lose him. She cheated because she thinks I'm ugly. She kept saying no, but I know that is why. I told her that I needed time to myself to process this. So there you have it. I guess the reason is straightforward, but it still hurts. I haven't spoken to a lawyer, but did look into divorce in my state. It seems like according to the law, I have to pay alimony for half the length of the marriage. So 5 years, and it will be 40% of the difference in our pay, so about 40. I also have to give her half of my 400 on gay. I need to see if this is true, as I think this would be unfair, given that she cheated. I'm also thinking of reaching out to the guy she cheated with. I found his Instagram, and what is disturbing is that he seems to have a girlfriend. So this is really crappy all around.